It's the content created with force like Darth Vader. Peace and blessings, and don't you dare go testing. We're going to come at you this evening with a document, and this is from Cracking the Code 3rd edition. And this is just a definition at the end of the glossary section. And this is based on the Wizard of Oz motion picture from 1939 by MGM on Metro Goldwyn Mayer, a book by L. Frank Baum, adaptation by Noel Langley, screenplay by Noel Langley, Florence Ryerson and Edgar Allan Wolfe, lyrics by E.Y. Harburg, produced by Mervyn Leroy, directed by Victor Fleming. See note. Note, just as you can read between the gory lines of the newspaper on any day and discover clues issued by the powers that be, if you look hard enough as to what is actually going on, such notice can also be found in lighter fare, like the movies. Such a movie was The Wizard of Oz, an allegory for the new state of affairs in America. In the 1930s, following the stock market crash and factual bankruptcy of the United States government immediately thereafter. The setting was Kansas, heartland America, and geographical center of the USA. In comes the twister, the tornado. In other words, whirling confusion, the stock market crash, theft of America's gold, U.S. bankruptcy, the Great Depression, and whisked Dorothy and Toto up into a new artificial dimension somewhere above the solid ground of Kansas. When they finally land in Oz, Dorothy comments to her little companion, Toto, I have a feeling we are not in Kansas anymore. After the bankruptcy, Kansas was no longer just plain old Kansas. It was now KS, artificial corporate venue of the bankrupt United States, newly established federal territory, part of the federal zone, and Dorothy and Toto were in this state. See, in this state. In the 1930s, the all capital letters written, see all capital letters written, straw man, see straw man, newly created artificial aspect of the foreign American sovereigns had no brain, and Americans were too confused and too distracted by all the commotion to figure out that they even had a straw man trade name. The Scarecrow identifies his straw man persona for Dorothy. Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking. Of course, I'm not right about doing things. And in his classic song, If I Only Had a Brain, the Scarecrow straw man successfully argued, I'd unravel every riddle for every individual, see individual, in trouble or in pain. Translation, once one discovers that a straw man exists, all political and legal mysteries, complexities, and confusions are resolved. And once one reclaims the legal title attached thereto, he can protect himself from legal trouble and damage. The Tin Man, or TIN, Taxpayer Identification Number Man, was a hollow man of metal, a vessel, a vehicle, see vessel, vehicle, newly created commercial code words for the straw man. Just like the Scarecrow straw man had no brain, this Tin Man vessel had no heart. Both were artificial persons, see person. One of the definitions of tin in Webster's is counterfeit. The Tin Man also represented the mechanical and heartless aspect of commerce and commercial law. Just like they say in the mafia, nothing personal is just business. The heartless Tin Man also carried an axe, traditional symbol for God, in other words, modern commercial law. In most earlier dominant civilizations, including fascist states, in the words of the Tin Man, expressing relief after Dorothy had oiled his arm, I've held that axe up for ages. The word ace is etymologically related with the word axe, and in a deck of cards, the only one above the king is the ace, in other words, God. One of the Axis powers of World War II, Italy, was a fascist state. The symbol for fascism is the fasces, a bundle of rods with an axe bound up in the middle and its blade projecting. The fasces may be found in the reverse of the American Mercury head dime. The Roman deity Mercury was the god of commerce, and on the wall behind and on each side of the speaker's podium in the U.S. Senate. Each gilded fasces is approximately 6 feet in height. At the base of the seal of the U.S. Senate are two crossed fasces, and directly below Lincoln's hands on the face of the arms of the chair in which Lincoln is sitting at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. The lion or king beast, see Gentile, some members of society regard you and your family and friends as nothing more than animals, cattle, to be bred and birthed, herded and harvested, and sold and slaughtered according to the whims of those who run the global plantation. A denigration in itself, representing the once fearless American people, had lost its courage. After your first round with the UCC constituted IRS defending your TIN man, dummy corporation, vessel, vehicle, individual, employee, public corporation, all capital letters written, juristic name, artificial person, straw man, trade name, you probably lost some of your courage too. You didn't know it, but the IRS have been dealing with you strictly under the laws of commerce. And just like the Tin Man, commerce is heartless. To find the wizard, you had to follow the yellow brick road. In other words, follow the trail of Americans' stolen gold, and you will find the thief who stole it. In the beginning of the movie, the wizard was represented by the traveling mystic, Professor Marvel, whom Dorothy encountered when she ran away with Toto. His macabre shingle touted that he was acclaimed by the crowned heads of Europe, past, present, and future. Boy, that Professor Marvel must have been a regular wizard to be acclaimed by the future crowned heads of Europe before they were even crowned, before the bankers stole America. They had long since disempowered the Christian monarchies of Europe and looted their kingdoms. Maybe this Professor Marvel fellow knew something about the future that other folks didn't. With the human skull peering down from its painted perch above the door inside his wagon, the good professor lectured Dorothy of the priests of Isis and Osiris and the days of the pharaohs of Egypt. When Dorothy Gale and her new friends emerged from the forest, they were elated to see Emerald City before them, only a short jaunt away. The Wicked Witch of the West, desperate for the ruby slippers that Dorothy was wearing, would have to make her move before our heroes were inside the walls. A significant point here is that in the original book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, published in 1900, 39 years earlier, the slippers were not ruby or red, but silver. At the time the book was written, America still had all its gold and silver, and the value of 1 ounce of gold was set at 15 ounces of silver, silver being the more plentiful of the two metals. Just as the silver slippers carried Dorothy, America's stockpile of silver and gold back in the currency carried the country to a position of preeminence throughout the world at that time. But as mentioned when the movie came out in 1939, the slippers were not silver, but red. Between 1916 and 1933, virtually all of America's gold ended up in England and Germany, as directed by the owners of the private Federal Reserve Bank. The reason for this was that Federal Reserve notes could be redeemed in gold, and the use of Federal Reserve notes carried an interest penalty that could only be paid in gold. We traded our gold in exchange for the use of worthless paper with green ink on it, whereas our original currency, United States notes, carried no such interest requirement, but was the bargain that came with the Federal Reserve notes. When bankruptcy was declared in 1933, Americans were required to turn in all gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates by May 1st, May Day, the birth of communism in Bavaria in 1776, the birthday of IRS, and celebrated worldwide as the International Workers' Holiday, a holy day to the wizard and his tribe. Consulting people who were alive at the time, you may find out that the general sentiment towards such thievery bordered on a second revolution. Maybe it was just too much of a clue, too much salt in the wound for Dorothy to be skipping down the yellow brick road in a pair of silver slippers. So for whatever reason, a color less likely to annoy and provoke was selected. Regarding the choice of ruby red color slippers, red's primary significance, at least on documents and the like, is that it is the color of blood, as in flesh and blood, and symbolizes a living, breathing man, woman. In other words, non-corporate, artificial. It also signifies private rather than public. The new Social Security card has a red serial number on the reverse, likely signifying the private side account associated with your trade name's public side Social Security account number before redemption. For postal employees, red sticker registered mail means personal accountability, private. All other mail carries limited liability, public. It is likely that the ruby slippers symbolize the American people with blood in their veins and not citizen of the United States strawman trade names with their counterfeit corporate blood of blue-black ink on a birth certificate. No matter, they're calling the movie, The Wicked Witch of the West wanted those slippers at any cost and had to move fast before Dorothy and crew could make it into Emerald City. Her tactic was to cover the countryside with poppy flowers or poppies, the source of herium, opium, and morphine, symbolically drugging them into unconsciousness, and then just waltz in and snatch the slippers. In other words, the best way to subjugate the American people and boost the goods was to dull their sentence by getting them hooked on drugs. Note, LSD was created the same year 1939, by Dr. Albert Hoffman. The poppies, drugs, worked on Dorothy, the lion, and Toto, our flesh and blood friends, but had no effect on the Scarecrow or the Tin Man, the artificial entities. The two of them cried out for help, and Glenda, the good witch of the north, answered their prayers with a blanket of snow. In other words, cocaine, a stimulant, nullifying, nullifying the narcotic effect of the poppies, opium on Dorothy, the lion, and Toto. At this writing, aside from marijuana, the two most available drugs in the streets of America are heroin and cocaine in their various forms. As they all scampered toward Emerald City, the city of green, Federal Reserve notes, the new fiat money or money by decree, we heard the Munchkins singing on the glory of the wizard's creation. You're out of the woods, you're out of the dark, you're out of the night. Step into the sun, step into the light, keep straight ahead, the most glorious place on the face of the earth or the stars. The foregoing jingle abounds with illuminous Luciferian symbols and metaphors regarding darkness and light. The Wicked Witch of the West made her home a round medieval watchtower, ancient symbol of the Knights Templar of Freemasonry, who are given to practice witchcraft and also credited as the originators of modern banking circa 1099 AD. The Wicked Witch of the West was also dressed in black, the color symbolizing the planet Saturn, sacred icon of the Knights Templar, and the color of choice of judges and priests for their robes. Who was the Wicked Witch of the West? Remember, in the first part of the film, her counterpart was Elmira Gulch, who, according to Aunt M, owned half the county. Miss Gulch alleged that Dorothy's dog, Toto, had bitten her. She came to the farm with an order from the sheriff demanding that they surrender Toto into her custody. Aunt M was not immediately cooperative and answered Miss Gulch's allegations that Toto had bitten her. He's really gentle, with gentle people, that is. Could gentle really mean Gentile? See Gentile. When Miss Ghost defied them to withhold Toto and go against the law, dear old Aunt M was relegated to pushing the party line for Big Brother. She dutifully succumbed under the pressure and counseled Dorothy reluctantly. We can't go against the law, Dorothy. I'm afraid poor Toto will have to go. When Dorothy refused to surrender Toto, Miss Ghost lashed out. If you don't hand over that dog, I'll bring a damn suit that'll take your whole farm. Today, 70% of all attorneys in the world reside in the West, America to be exact, and 95% of all lawsuits in the world are filed under U.S. jurisdiction. The Wicked Witch of the West and Miss Gulch, my dear friends, represent esquires, judges, and attorneys, in other words, the American legal system, including the attorney-run U.S. Congress and White House, executioner and primary henchman for transferring all wealth in America, everything from the people into the possession of the banks and the government. The Wicked Witch of the West wanted the silver slippers, the precious metals, and her counterpart, Miss Gulch, wanted Toto. What does the word Toto mean in attorney language? In other words, Latin. Everything. Dorothy and the gang fell for the wizard's illusion in the beginning, but soon wished up and discovered the wizard for what he was, a confidence man. When asked about helping the Scarecrow, straw man, among other babblings about getting a brain in universities, the wizard also cited the land of E pluribus unum, which is Latin for one out of many. In other words, converting the many into one. New World Order. Novus Ordo Seclorum, a Latin phrase placed on the American $1 bill shortly after the bankruptcy. He also proudly confessed that he was born and bred in the heart of the Western wilderness, an old Kansas man myself. The bankers did pretty well in Europe, but as the wizard pointed out, they made a killing in the Western wilderness, in other words, America, with the theft of American gold, labor, and the property from, quoting John D. Rockefeller, grateful and responsive rural folk who populated the country at the time. When Dorothy asked Glenda, the good witch of the North, Santa Claus Christianity, for help in getting back to Kansas, Glenda replied, "You don't need to be helped. You've always had the power to go back to Kansas." Translation: You've always had the power. You've always had the right and power to exercise your sovereignty. You just forgot. The actual act of asserting your sovereignty, remedy, a common law copyright notice, and a UCC financing statement for filing with the Secretary of State can be completed from scratch in no time. America and Americans have intimate firsthand knowledge of the heartless mechanics of the laws of commerce, religiously applied by the unregistered foreign agents at Internal Revenue Service, the IRS accountancy firm and collection agency for the private Federal Reserve Bank was constituted under the UCC at its inception in 1954 and has been operating strictly in that realm ever since. You may have wondered What is the meaning behind the words in the title, The Wizard of Oz? Look them up in the dictionary. Like almost everything else, it's right out there in the open for you to see, if you will. Just look closely. One definition of wizard is a very clever or skillful person. OZ is an abbreviation of onza, ONZA, the Italian word for ounce or ounces, the unit of measurement of gold, silver, and other precious metals. No matter how large the quantity of gold, silver being discussed, the amount is always expressed in ounces. Example given, rather than hundreds of tons of gold, it's so many million ounces of gold, as attested by the factual history of this country. The Wizard of Oz was the Wizard of Ounces. Everything worked out for Dorothy. In other words, the American people in the end, and she made it home, meaning it's remedy and law. See, remedy, it's there. It was just encoded in disguise and camouflage. Fortunately, the code has been cracked, and there is a way home, just like in the movie. Like Dorothy said, there's no place like home, and there isn't. There's nothing like sovereignty for a sovereign. We have commercial remedy in the redemption process. Will you continue to be conned by the confidence men and worship the Wizard's Light Show, or will you rise up like Dorothy did and look behind the scenes? And that is the excerpt from the book called Cracking the Code, 3rd edition, under the definition of the Wizard of Oz. Like, share, and subscribe, people. Like, share, and subscribe, people. Like, share, and subscribe, people. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace and blessings, and don't you dare go testing. And that'll be it tonight for the Wizard of Oz. Be peaceful, be blessed. Pray to pass God's test.